All right, welcome back to our walkthrough of J. Daniel Alejo's Tending the Garden. Last time, we talked all about the active, careful work of tending. Well, today, we're hitting Chapter 10, which is kind of the dark side of that coin. It's all about what happens when we don't tend the garden, when we just let it go.
And man, the chapter just opens with this gut punch of a line. The whole idea here is that doing nothing is never neutral. You know, in the garden of our lives, of our souls, neglect isn't a break. It's literally a signed permission slip for chaos to come right in and take over.
So here's the crucial point. Our formation, the way we're being shaped, it's always on. There is no pause button. If we aren't being intentional about what shapes us, we're not just stopping the process, we're basically outsourcing it to whatever's loudest or easiest.
And this is where the book really puts it right back on us, doesn't it? It forces you to ask this incredibly sharp question about your own life, your family, your work. If you're not actively planting and watering the good stuff, what are you accidentally letting grow in its place?
Because something will fill that empty space. This is what rushes in. We get shaped by the loudest voice on the internet, the easiest way out of a conflict, that lie that sounds kind of true, or just the same old broken patterns we inherited. And here's the really insidious part. This doesn't lead to a neutral, empty field. It leads to what the book calls malformation, a state where the weeds grow so thick that the brokenness, the dysfunction, starts to look and feel completely normal.
Okay, from there, we get to this next big idea. The chapter totally reframes how we think about sin. It's not so much a moral label, like you're a bad person, but more like a structural problem. It's about what happens when things just don't work the way they were designed to.
And if you look at where the word for sin actually comes from, it's pretty fascinating. In both Greek and Hebrew, the original meaning is literally to miss the mark, like an archer aiming for a target. It's not about being evil, it's just about aiming for reality, for what's good and true, and missing, even with the best of intentions.
And this is the line that just clicks it all into place, right? Our misses are never abstract. Arrows don't just vanish into thin air if they don't hit the bullseye. They always land somewhere. They always hit something. So what gets hit? This is where those arrows land. In a child's idea of who they are, a friend's ability to trust you, a partner's feeling of safety, the reputation of a whole community. This just shatters that easy excuse we tell ourselves that at least no one got hurt, because someone or something always takes the hit. And it doesn't stop there. The book then zooms out and shows us how these individual hits, these single moments, don't just stay small. Over time and across generations, they scale up. A single wound can become an entire inheritance of pain. This metaphor of the arrow's path is just perfect for explaining it. Think about it, a 1-degree deviation. At 5 feet, it's almost nothing. You might even clip the target. But stretch that same 1-degree miss out over 500 feet, and suddenly you're not just off the target, you're in a completely different zip code. That's how sin scales. A tiny compromise, a small lie, repeated over years, becomes a massive canyon of generational trauma.
And all that scaling damage leads to this really heavy concept the book introduces: archetypal collapse. This is when a failure is so big, it doesn't just damage one relationship, it poisons the very idea of a role. You know, like a pastor who has an affair doesn't just hurt his family, he damages the concept of pastor for everyone who was watching. He contaminates the archetype.
The wound literally becomes an inheritance. It's this vicious cycle. One person's failure creates a wound. That wounded person then develops these deep filters of mistrust. And then they pass those filters, not just as stories, but as gut feelings, as instincts, down to their kids. And the whole cycle just repeats, creating the very thing everyone fears. And the book is super clear on this. Pretending the damage didn't happen is not a strategy. You can't just move on. If you don't name the wound, if you minimize it, excuse it, or ignore it, you guarantee that the poison just keeps spreading. Unacknowledged pain always gets passed on.
So, let's follow this to its conclusion. What happens when you get enough of these misses, these collapses, this denial, all accumulating in a culture? Well, you get the final, absolutely terrifying stage of this whole cascade.
This isn't just a metaphor, and it's not just about people having hurt feelings. The book argues it's an actual structural breakdown of meaning itself. The very words we use to navigate reality, words like love, justice, truth, they get so damaged that they start pointing to our wounds instead of to the real thing. You know this feeling. The word love is still used all the time, but it often describes something flimsy, something transactional, something useful for a season. It points to a feeling, but not to the deep, solid reality it's supposed to represent. The word is there, but the meaning has been hollowed out.
Or how about this one? We feel this collapse right in our gut. It's that cynicism that rises up when a boss or a leader says, "We're a family here," but you know it's just a tool to get you to work late. A secret symbol has been contaminated for personal gain, and we instinctively know it.
And eventually, after all this, the very idea that there is an objective reality to aim for, a single shared bullseye, it starts to feel naive, maybe even impossible. All that's left is your truth and my truth, and the whole structure that holds reality together just gives way.
So the chapter lands us here, with this chilling conclusion. We aren't just wounded, we're in a free fall. The system itself is crumbling beneath our feet, and our good intentions, our strength, our best efforts, they're just not enough to stop the fall.
Which leaves us with the one massive question waiting at the bottom. In a world where the words and symbols are breaking, where meaning itself feels like it's dissolving, is there anything real left to hold on to? And that question right there is what sets the stage for everything that comes next in the book.